Transformative is a series of short films that try and explain the history of fashion photography as seen from the perspective of the stylist, the makeup artist and the hairdresser. So, Isamaya, thank you very much for joining us for this Transformative. As I just explained, the idea of this is I will show you photographs that you've been part of, or at least your work's been part of, and then we just talk about them.
Okay.
But before I show you anything at all, can you just take me from the beginning a little bit, starting with your name?
Yeah, and my name's Old English,
Right.
14th century, I think, and it was from the old Christian Book of Names.
Oh, really?
So it's, I guess, somehow a derivative of the name Esmeralda.
Right.
Esmeralda, Esme, Isamaya, so there's
Okay.
some link there. And then the French...
With the double F?
With the double F, yeah. And it should actually be two smaller Fs.
Right.
Because when it was, the name was written in a kind of Gothic script, the two Fs or the capital F looked like two lowercase f's, so it's kind of lost in translation. So it's all very English.
It's all very English, isn't it?
As much as it doesn't sound.
I looked at it and I thought, is it English or is it sort of Haitian? Or is it like, it's got a slight sort of voodoo feel to it too.
Yeah, that's fun.
Anyway, so I wanted to ask you just where your name came from. But tell me a little bit how you sort of got to where you, how did you start makeup? Just give me a bit of history.
So I started, I guess I started getting into makeup quite seriously in my early 20s.
Right.
I went to Central St Martin and did studied a degree in product design, actually with the intention to become a shoe designer.
Okay.
That was the grand plan.
Yeah.
And I just thought product design would be a bit more of give me a kind of broader education in how to work in a 3D way and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then whilst I was doing the product design course, rather than getting a bar job, I started face painting at kids' parties and that sort of thing. And that became quite regular. And of course, with any trade or profession, you do have to have an element of training. So I did like a day course in face painting, and then progressively kind of got better at it over the course of.
But you must have had some aptitude towards it at the beginning. You didn't just say, "Oh, I'll be a face painter." It must have been something.
Something. Well, I did. I mean, I do have memories of being sort of 7 and 8 and buying, or choosing to buy books on makeup. I bought a Kevin Aucoin book, Making Faces. Yeah, which I mean, I still have, and I was completely sort of obsessed with this book and the idea of transformation in a face, and I found that amazing. And I had a set of face paints from a very young age that I would go and face paint neighbours' kids and that sort of thing. And I mean, thinking about it now, it on paper it makes sense.
Yeah.
But my first sort of adult face painting experience was just from my sister's daughter's school fete. Right. Okay. And I just sort of offered my services, and then from there I thought, actually, maybe this could be quite a fun job to do. So then I took a year out from the product design course just to have a year to find out what I really wanted to do. Yeah. I suppose the appeal of designing chairs and phones and stuff, which was, and also a very digital based course, wasn't really what I was expecting. I kind of had this grand idea that it would be like a conceptual product design course, and I could make these, interesting objects or dysfunctional furniture. Yeah. But it was quite controlled.
So did you have to sort of fight them for it, or did they?
At university?
Yeah, was it a clash between you and the tutors?
Very much so, yeah. I suppose I was just really disinterested by the proposed projects, because product design is a sort of mass production for the masses. So, there's really there's nothing really conceptual about it. Essentially, you're just removing and removing and removing until you get the basic thing that will appeal to a very big audience, I guess. And so on one hand, that was interesting, and also it teaches you, a product design course teaches you how to understand what a brand wants.
Right.
You know, in that you're getting your head around a brand's aesthetic or a brand's objective, but then still being able to kind of introduce your own personality somehow.
Yeah.
Which I suppose, in thinking about what I'm doing now, makes sense, because I'm still working for brands or photographers or you know, stylists who have that.
So I guess if you were going in there with the idea that it might be for dysfunctional objects, and they were saying to you, well, form's got to follow function.
Exactly.
Wasn't going very well.
Yeah. Look at Bauhaus. Yeah.
So, but weren't you at Chelsea? Didn't I read somewhere that you were at Chelsea?
Yeah, I did a year there, and that was just an intro. That was a what do you call it?
Foundation.
Foundation. Yeah.
Right.
And I was still in the product design or the 3D design area, but during all that time, I still wanted to do shoes.
Right.
That was still my.
Where was Chelsea? Where's the building? It not on Manresa Road anymore, is it?
Next to Tate Britain.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Millbank?
Yeah, Millbank.
Yeah. Pimlico, yeah.
You used to have a beautiful building on Manresa Road in Chelsea. So I was at Chelsea Science College.
Okay,
I used to look, and the art college was on the other side of the road, and I used to look at the art college and think, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we digress.
It's a really nice place to go to university, Chelsea. I'd have stayed if they'd offered the course. Yeah,
so come out west. I was telling you.
No, yeah.
So you did the foundation at Chelsea, I went to St Martin's. Did you finish the course?
No, I didn't. No. I did 2 years, and then I took this year out with the intention of going back.
Yeah.
And they allowed me to take 2 years out, because I guess they knew that I was serious and that I wanted a taste of industry and I wanted to explore my options. But and I joined a theatre company called the Adams Company.
Oh, right, okay.
During that time, which was also another interesting and kind of creative and visually stimulating group of people to perform with.
So when you say you joined the Adams Company, in what role, what guise?
As a dancer.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I trained in dancing.
Right.
And guess until I was sort of 18, 19.
Okay, so that's what I'm kind of interested in. And where do you come from? Which part of Britain?
From Cambridge.
In Cambridge. So when you left school, what did you think you were going to do?
Well, I wanted to become a dentist.
Excellent. Good. So product designer, dancer and dentist.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of my time at sixth form and at secondary school was kind of geared up, and I worked at a dental practice at the weekends as a dental nurse.
Right.
And that was what I wanted to do. Yeah. And it was with a lot of these things, it was a sudden last minute flash of realization of what on earth am I doing this? I'm not following my dream. I was interested in the idea of dentistry, but I guess in the same way that suddenly after doing 2 years of product design, which was again a very sort of regimented and controlled practice, suddenly something was like, get out of there, go and do something else. And I was dancing. I trained in classical point ballet,
right,
and contemporary and stuff. So I would have loved. I would have loved to continued training more in London, but unless you're going to be a dancer, which I wasn't going to make a career out of it, you've got to stop at some point.
Right. So you slightly put Central Masters to one side, taking a year out, met Theo Adams, joined the dance company. Yeah. So tell me then the links. There must be a next step that gets you to makeup.
So the next step, I suppose, is because I was still doing this face painting.
Yeah.
I became friends. Purely really through living in East London. You meet a lot of people. Yeah. Befriended a photographer, and he had a really gorgeous girlfriend, and he'd take lots of photos of her and other girls and stuff. Yeah. And I remember coming back from a party with my face paint kits in my bag. Yeah. I'd just going to the house for a drink or to hang out or something. Yeah. And I sort of revealed that I had these paints with me, and he's like, "Why don't you just paint my girlfriend and we can do a shoot?" Yeah. And I thought this idea, it sounded fun. So she had a big tiger sort of jump bodysuit thing, and I painted her as this tiger, and and it was really good fun. And I guess that was maybe like a flash of realisation that this face paint thing could maybe be taken somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a big
Seeing
step.
it on an adult.
It's a big step. I mean, what I find fascinating with what I know of you and what just watching your career over the last few years, is how incredibly strong your presence now is, and your ideas are sort of, you've come along at a time, I say it's, with lots of affection for lots of other makeup artists as well, but it really has changed things. And there aren't that many makeup artists that come along with that much determination or that much of a sort of clear vision for something completely different.
Oh, thanks.
So it's very interesting and partly what I wanted to interview you, it's very interesting to catch somebody at the beginning of their career who's had this much effect already.
Thanks.
So I'm super interested in what you do. I wanted to finish that. So that's when it started. So you started thinking there might be some way you could use face painting in terms of something other than face painting.
Yeah, I suppose pretty much. And I can't remember in which order it was, but I guess it was really one of the first, the first time I was involved in an editorial, and it's kind of luck really. It was ID magazine,
right?
And at the time I was doing the face paint stuff. I was a really completely uneducated, apart from reading a book by Kevin O'Quarr, in the world of makeup,
right?
And with the probability of sounding ignorant, I didn't have a clue who Pat McGrath or Val or Topolino, all these people that I sort of, look at now and have a lot of respect for. I had no idea really what ID was or I was doing product design, and that was sort of theatre, that was my world. Yeah. And so an artist called Matthew Stone, I guess, he's a friend of Theo's, heard that I was... Matthew, Lovely boy, yeah. He was shooting something for ID magazine and got in touch with me and asked if I could come and paint some male models as kind of gods or demigods or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. And at that time I was sort of exploring materials, clay and that kind of thing, just through curiosity, and I sort of, through all of the creative things that I'm doing, materials have always been quite important. So I turned up on the shoot with a kit that was just like, acrylic paints, probably some wall rollers, like pots of clay, and all this kind of like, embarrassed to say, very untidy and kit then. And then, sort of, whatever, did the boys like these gods and covered them in blue and cracked clay and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then there was another makeup artist who was doing the beauty stuff. Yeah. And I just remember looking at our kits and just thinking how alien hers looked. These beiges and very clean, and her brushes were very clean, and there was me in the sink with like the washing up liquid trying to get the like acrylic out of mine. And I think that was another turning point where I just thought, why aren't I doing that too? Yeah. Why, I guess it sort of not necessarily felt like competition, but it definitely made me hungry for the next thing. Yeah. It was a world I didn't really know about that I could know about. Yeah. So then I bought a couple of MAC products, some things that I'd seen were in her kit, face and body, and I guess sort of eventually taught myself how to use these products, and I'm still intrigued in the whole process of makeup, and it'll never...
Well, I'm sure. Yeah. There are some great people out there to learn from. Yeah. I think the last person that had as much effect in a sort of shock way that yours has was Pat. When Pat was doing things with Stephen and with Craig, certainly with Steve and myself. Yeah. When she did things with Karen Elson, there was a kind of, wow, didn't know makeup could be that strong.
It's still so strong, isn't it?
I think it's very helpful, because when people like yourself come along with a super strong vision and it's come from left of field, it throws the whole thing on its head and therefore makes it much more exciting. I think then people try and kind of, do different things, and I think that makes everything more exciting. Same thing happens in photography, to be honest. Yeah. All of a sudden you get some young photographer who's doing it completely differently, coming from completely left of field, and all of a sudden photography is more exciting again. Yeah. So I do think that. Anyway, I need to show you a picture. I'd like to show you a picture. Yeah. I want to get you to talk about it. So that's the first one from a series.
Okay.
So that's one of the first things I saw of yours. I
Right.
just thought, my God, she's amazing. To do that, such a fantastic leap of colour. I mean, so many different things come into that. However, could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, this prosthetics piece was actually, it was made by I wish I could say I made it, but it was actually made by the creative studio that do like Walking with Dinosaurs.
Oh, right, okay.
And all of those kind of like BBC documentaries. And
Yeah.
so we had a lot of fun going to their, I guess their studios, and the model had to go for a fitting. It was sort of custom made, and being able to see the equipment and some really, really amazing things that they have there. And, you know, something called a flocking machine that makes you very hairy. You probably have seen before, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then
I'm surprised you haven't used a hair flocking machine yet.
I might get my hands desperate to, yeah, I am. So this is sort of custom built, and then it's just a foam mask, and she had to, poor thing, be fitted in this very smelly mask all day.
Right.
So we sort of glued and latexed it on, and then
But you can't tell because you can't see whether she's smiling or not.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure
the
she wasn't
fixed
smiling.
smile.
Yeah. I mean, it was really funny because she couldn't take it off. You know, we said she had to keep it on because every time we took a photo, you know, we changed the colour slightly or whatever, repaint bits of it. I remember her sitting there in a corner, kind of 5 hours in, trying to smoke through the hole in the mask, and thinking, poor girl. So.
But tell me a little bit, because I get the process is super interesting, but I want to know the thought process that leads you to that.
Well, this originally was a lot of this is actually the photographer's concept, and I can't remember if it was before or after this. I did a show where these masks were made for models to look like animals. They were put into a jungle for Marcus Lupfer.
That's right, yeah.
And it was a sort of a similar process. And I have a feeling he might have seen that and liked the idea of doing something again where it's this bizarre twist, almost like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Do you know what I mean? That sort of. Yeah. I suppose, like, I mean, this is an extreme version, but I suppose it's. I haven't seen anything like if I shot it, I was imagining, and when we were talking about it, that she'd be much more in situ, because I suppose I like the idea of narrative, and so if she'd been sitting sort of in a, you know, at home having a cup of tea, lounging on the sofa, it would kind of put it into context, whereas this is kind of, I don't know, almost thrown completely out of context. You know what I mean? Which maybe makes it more interesting.
Well, it focuses more on this realism of her sort of rather sort of waspy beauty, and then this incredible feature on her face.
Yeah.